الحمد لله الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون وقال تعالى فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم واسمعوا وأطيعوا وأنفقوا خيرا لأنفسكم ومن يوق شح نفسه فأولئك هم المفلحون. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قيل للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من أكرم الناس؟ قال أكرمهم أتقاهم. آمنت بالله صدق الله مولانا العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Alhamdulillah, with the tawfiq, the life and health from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have been blessed to enter into the month of Ramadan al-Mubarak. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us one of the main purposes of fasting during the month of Ramadan is to attain piety, to attain taqwa. Last week in the khutbah we talked about some points in regards to attaining taqwa and the piety from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And today we will, inshallah, talk about some more points, because in aspects of our priorities, it's important that we know the objectives and the goals of the Sharia. When we practice upon them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will shower upon us His favors, His blessings, and He will give you a life of enjoyment here as well as in the next life. This life will become meaningful. It will be full of many good things and aspects of our purposes and goals that we are to achieve with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life and the akhirah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So here, fasting as being prescribed upon us and the previous ummah indicates that this is something that you will achieve and attain piety through. That is therefore very important that we concentrate on that during this Ramadan. And one of the things that you should do immediately, because that comes from the word taqwa, which is wiqaya. It is protecting oneself from the hellfire, protecting oneself from the displeasure of Allah, protecting oneself from doing anything that displeases Him. So we should, number one, make a firm resolve that during this month of Ramadan, if you want to attain piety, stay away from sin. Make that intention, or we should have made that intention already when this month came in. That inshallah we will not do any sin during this entire month. The reason we say this and we make this our goal is because the Prophet ﷺ told us, whoever passes by through the month of Ramadan, man salima lahu Ramadan, salima lahu tamam as-sana, or kama qala alayhi salatu wassalam. Whoever passes by this month of Ramadan with a good, sound way and properly observing its etiquettes and its goals and objectives, the rest of our Ramadan will also, the rest of our entire year will also go by good and sound. Therefore, when it comes to piety, what should be our goals? And what are the benefits of piety, the fruits of piety? We talked about some of them last week. Inshallah, we'll continue on that. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He says, "O you who believe, fear Allah the way He should be feared. The way He should be feared, and don't you dare die except in the condition of submission." And we know that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala has not burdened us with anything beyond our capabilities. And that's why He says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. How do you fear Allah the way He deserves to be feared? By doing your best in aspects of attaining taqwa and piety. He tells us the first way to do that is to surround yourself with people of piety. No command is undoable. It's up to us who we surround ourselves with. Who you hang around with, who you keep company with, will play an effect, will affect your piety, will affect your righteousness. It will make you conscientious of Allah, mindful of Allah. It will make you pious. It will make you sincere. It will make you loyal. It will make you heedful. Taqwa, as described by one of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Umar radiyallahu anhu, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he mentioned the example of taqwa is a person who is walking through a field of thorns. And yet his clothing is loose, and so therefore he draws his clothing near his body in order to avoid being pricked by those thorns. This is an example. Here, the clothing is a metaphor for character. And the clothing of a person, here it means the character of a person and the way that they shape and develop their character and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also instilled him of his character. So when a person is given this by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and similarly he develops good character, he will be tested. And the thorns that have been mentioned here is a metaphor for understanding the temptations of the dunya. So therefore, just like a person walking through that field, he will be careful from any thorns coming upon him and ripping his clothing. Similarly, in this dunya, we will be tested and trialed. Your character, who you really are, not your reputation, not other aspects of how society sees you, but who you really are inside. That's what taqwa is. And that's what we are all striving for, to build our character from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has divinely blessed us with as well. And so character is something that we should pay full attention to. One of those great parts of character, and building it has to be taqwa, piety. And so Umar radiallahu anhu gave this beautiful example. Therefore, as the saying goes, we need to be very thoughtful and mindful of what we are thinking. So watch over your thoughts, because your thoughts will become your words. And you watch over your words because these words will become your actions. These actions will then become your habits. The habits will become your character will become your fate. Hence, taking taqwa seriously as an objective of fasting is one of the main goals that we should be striving for. So as I said, one of the main things that we can do to attain that is what this word actually means: fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being mindful of Him, conscientious of Him. What do we fear? Now remember, fear here does not mean scared. Rather, it means, because the word scared in the English language has a connotation that excludes the feeling of love and respect. And fear of Allah means that you respect and love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And this is why you are not wanting to disobey Him. You want to stay away from anything that displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't you do that with the people you love? If you have a relationship, you have a lover, you love someone, how do you behave with them? You make sure that your feelings of love are manifested, and you make sure that you respect them, and that you do everything you can to accommodate that. How about with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How should we be fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not see us. La yaraka mawlaka haythu yanhak. That your Lord does not see you in a place that you should not be. Where you should be fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and displeasing Him. And so Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, He tells us in regards and aspects of taqwa in this verse that we should fear Him the way He ought to be feared. And that can only happen when we have instilled inside of us that inner mechanism that will keep us away from displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Instill in us the fear that if we do that, we will end up in the hellfire. And therefore, whatever we can do to gain loyalty, to gain sincerity through the worship of Allah, because you see this deen of al-Islam, Allah has given us some beliefs. And those beliefs that we have, they have to be manifested in the ibadah that we do. And a sign of your faith is that you come to the masjid. A sign of your faith is that you fast in the month of Ramadan. A sign of your faith is that even though you're tired, you come for Salatul Taraweeh. These are all signs of our faith that prove us loyal to Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Likewise, the demands of the community, the demands of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in our monetary world, our zakat, our sadaqah, those are things that also prove us worthy, because you have faith in Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala that I have a right, that the poor, the needy, they have rights upon my wealth, that I need to make sure that I am giving that for the sake of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So you're mindful in your physical worship, in your monetary worship. This is sadaqah, al-nafila wal-wajiba, including zakat, including the zakatul fitr that we'll be paying. All of these things, they are doing what? They are making us mindful of the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are proving our being honest in our faith. That's why they are called sadaqah. Now, these worships then should not be lacking in any aspect. We should do them to the best of our ability. And this is why Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, when he was mentioning the quality of jood, of generosity, of magnanimity, how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this month was even more generous. حين يلقاه جبريل, when Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam would come to him, imagine, because he being presented with the angel Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, it reminded him of his duties. He is coming from the heavens, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with this message. And therefore, I must do the best that I can. And this is why the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he would do yudarisuhu al-Quran. With the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he would review the Quran in the month of Ramadan. In the last year of his life, he did it twice with Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam. And so, when it comes to the quality of jood, generosity, and giving, Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, and this is being mentioned because we have many demands in our community. You see this masjid that you are in, we added right in the back another mobile home for you to accommodate you during Taraweeh, during Ramadan, during Jumma, wa ghayra dhalik. We need to expand. Part of that expansion is with the trees project that is mentioned on the flyer that you have seen as you enter into the masjid. And so your generations will, inshallah, enable us to develop that land. And remember, whatever you give, this is proving your loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says, what is the definition of jood? He says, بَذْلُ الْمَجْهُودِ فِي بَذْلِ الْمَوْجُودِ مُنْتَهَى الْجُودِ. The epitome of generosity. The highest level you can achieve in being generous for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that you exert yourself fully to the best you can. بَذْلُ الْمَجْهُودِ فِي بَذْلِ الْمَوْجُودِ. In whatever circumstance, whatever demand comes upon you, and whatever you can do at that time, given your circumstance. Some of us, we're just making meets end. And we're struggling with our finances. Do you not know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever wise? He knows what we are going through. He is khabir. He's aware of that. So it's not the amount that you give that is important. It's the quality with which you give it. The taqwa with which you give it. Being mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Being mindful of the needs. And one of those needs is the house of Allah. What better place to invest your money? Infaq fi sabilillah. That's for the sake of Allah. Because you put it here and you will see it over there. This is a true investment. This is where your money will prosper. This is where, inshallah, in this dunya, in the akhirah. Because how much time do we have left on this earth? How long have you traveled? People celebrate their birthdays. Today's the birthday of this person, so many years, 60 years. One of my teachers used to say, they're celebrating their birthday. But they don't think about how much time they have left in this earth. Because they have been walking for how many years towards death? Have you been walking 50 years? How many? 60 years? How close are you now to that death? There's a few days left, a few years left. How much time is that? Allah knows best. We are walking towards that, and it's inevitable. It's going to happen. And yet, we are complacent with our life, with our wealth, with our health. Any of these can be taken back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at any time. And so, brothers and sisters in Islam, again, this community has always looked at fulfilling the demands that have come upon it. What better demand, what better way to fulfill it for our future generations to come? To build a beautiful place, a beautiful house of worship, a place, an institution where they can learn higher education in Islam, where they can become ulama, where they can become learned and well-grounded in the deen, which is extremely important, especially in these times of shubuhat, of shukuk, of doubts and skepticisms that people are creating all around us. Where do you stand and where do your children stand? How much have we done for them to make them well-grounded in the deen? So take the time out to donate, to give for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. بذل المجهود في بذل الموجود منتهى الجود. These words of wisdom that were told to us, that we keep in mind that this piety, this taqwa, is something that all of us should do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah as much as you can. But what does that mean? There's some actions that have been listed for us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us that وَاسْمَعُوا وَأَطِيعُوا وَأَنْفِقُوا. You see, you need to listen first. We don't listen. This is why we are told to listen to the Quran, because we talk too much. We need to hear. We need to comprehend the kalam of Allah. These words, they need to come into our minds, our hearts. We need to listen and obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then also spend. What? Not just wealth, but whatever you can. Give the best version of yourself. What does that mean? It's talking about ihsan. If you want to do something, do it the best of your ability. Whatever you can do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so He says, وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. The one who is protected from the avarice, from the covetousness, from the greed of the dunya, from the greed of wealth, all of these things, he's not stingy, he's not miserly, opens up his heart, and he understands, he knows, Ya Rabb, you know how much I can give, what I'm giving, it's for your sake, I did the best of my ability. That's all that counts. That's all that's needed. That person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, whoever is protected from the avarice of the nafs, that greed, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. They are successful. They've attained bliss. What more do you want? This is the aspect of what, inshallah, in this month of Ramadan, this beautiful course Allah has given to us to train ourselves, to bring ourselves. So first of all, just make this azam, make this irada, that as part of taqwa, in attaining that goal of taqwa, number one, I will stay away from sinning this month of Ramadan. If you do that, inshallah, you will stay away from sinning the rest of the year. That's building up your loyalty and your faith with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And secondly, that we know for much part of the year we were not able to worship the way we should have. We missed out on coming to the jama'ah. We missed out in congregational prayers. We missed out on jumma, etc. And we didn't do the utmost that we could in donating, etc. All of these things. So brothers and sisters in Islam, let us all make this intention that during this month of Ramadan, just like we stay away from sin, that inshallah we will do more nafal ibadat during this month of Ramadan. And when I mention nafal, that means by default you're already doing the fara'id. Because if you're not doing the fara'id, that's the basics. That's the more important aspect. 5 daily prayers, fasting in the month of Ramadan, all of these things, and giving zakat. These are those things that we must do. But as those people who recited only 1 juz of the Quran every day, maybe now you can recite 3, 4, 5 juz of the Quran every day. If you had done a certain amount of dhikr, now you can boost up that. And you can do and increase your nafal ibadah. You can increase your sadaqat. Because you know better than me that 70 times more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will multiply this reward for you. And so remember, and we'll finish with this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it comes to fasting, He says, As-sawmu li wa ana ajzi bi. Fasting is for me, and I will reward it. Everything has a limit, a restricted aspect that you're going to get this much reward, this much reward, this much reward. For fasting, Allah subhanahu innama yuwaffa as-sabiruna ajrahum bighayri hisab. Because fasting inculcates one of the greatest measures of patience. It takes a lot of patience to fast, to stay away from halal things, halal food. You're not eating even that. It's in the fridge. You can take it. You're staying away from halal food, halal drink, halal conjugal relations. Isn't it a pity that at the time of fasting we would open our fast with haram food? La hawla wa la quwwata. So if we can stay away from the lawful things, that is training us to stay away from all of the haram. Again, going back to, inshallah, we will not do any sin during this month of Ramadan. And so increase your ibadat in all aspects. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. We have requests for dua. Brother Muhammad Siraj Wara, he is in the hospital. The family is requesting dua. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him full and complete recovery and place him into a healthy state. And similarly, Brother Altaf Tawfiq, along MCC member here as well, his brother is very sick. He's in the hospital. The family is also asking to make dua for him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him a full recovery. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. أما بعد، فيا أيها الناس اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. قال تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. وقال تعالى: فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم واسمعوا وأطيعوا وأنفقوا خيرا لأنفسكم ومن يوق شح نفسه فأولئك هم المفلحون. وقيل للنبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم: من أكرم الناس؟ قال: أكرمهم أتقاهم. بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم. أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وصل على جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. ورضى اللهم عن ساداتنا أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي وعن سائر الصحابة والتابعين وتابعيهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. عباد الله رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
استقيموا واعتدلوا. Straighten lines, fill in the gaps. Please silence your cell phones. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أولادكم عن ذكر الله ومن يفعل ذلك فأولئك هم الخاسرون. وأنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم الموت فيقول رب لولا أخرتني إلى أجل قريب فأصدق وأكن من الصالحين. ولن يؤخر الله نفسا إذا جاء أجلها والله خبير بما تعملون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ramadan coming to all of you. ICCL will be hosting drive-through iftars on Saturdays and Sundays. We distribute about 500 meals. It costs about $4,000. If anyone, a family or a group of people want to sponsor it, we have 3 spots available. I think we have about 4 spots available. Please visit our website to sign up. We have many programs throughout the month, inshallah, including a basic tajweed class every day after Asr, pre-iftar lecture and dua. It's going to be on YouTube and in person as well here at ICCL. We also have youth programs on every Sunday from 4 to 5 p.m. Every week we have different topics. This week's topic is our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We also have a series of programs with Imam Adil on Fridays and Saturdays after Tarawih, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan.